All right, Shalom. First, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahashem Yahweh Shai, Bahashem Machak Kodash. Double honors to the apostles of Great Millstone, and peace and blessings to the elect. Was Paul a Roman or an Israelite? Okay, and really, it's sort of a trick question because first, you see, you got to understand that being a Roman, all right, in the sense of sort of saying, like, for example, if you were to say I'm an American. There's a difference between the two, which this world, for some reason, they blur the lines between nation or nationality and citizenship. Okay, there's a difference between being a citizen, all right, of a certain country or of a certain province or of a certain empire, and being a individual of a certain nation. Okay, because if you're of a certain nation, it doesn't matter what citizenship you have, your nationality never changes. Okay. So I'll give you an example of different nations. You have what today will be known as Chinese, Japanese, so-called whites. All right. East Indians, and biblically will be known as what? Elamites, Ammonites, Moabites. You have Israelites, you have Edomites. These are different nations. Okay. But I'll give you an example. Amongst these different nations, for example, Edomites, right? Anybody who's an Edomite, okay, is of that one nation. They're of the same nation. But you have Edomites that will call themselves American. You have the same nation of Edomites that'll call themselves Jewish. You have them that'll call themselves European. Some of them will call themselves German. Italian, which you have Israelites amongst them too. But that's not their nation. Okay. You can be an Edomite and you can be an American at the same time. Why? Because being an Edomite is your nationality. Being American is your citizenship. Okay. You are a citizen of America. Okay. So that's why I asked that question: was Paul an Israelite or a Roman? All right. And if you understand the difference between the two, all right, you'll know that it was a trick question. Okay. Because, well, let me first get the scripture on it. This is Acts chapter 22, because Paul pulls the card or plays the card of being a Roman citizen, all right, in order to get out of the situation he was in this scripture. But people will take that and try to say, oh, well, weren't you the same people who said the Romans are Edomites? So if Paul said he was a Roman, then Paul's an Edomite. But that's not even a valid or sound argument. Okay, because according to the same scriptures that you're going to try to use to prove that statement, cuts that. All right, so let me read this. This is Acts 22 verse 25. It says, and they um actually, I'll start at verse 24. It says the chief captain commanded him to be brought into the castle. So first you got to understand that when Rome, all right, started expanding, all right, hitting their peak, really spreading their empire and conquering different nations, they subjugated them under Rome, all right, and annexed them, all right, or um, included them into the empire, all right. So they would be under Roman control, under Roman authorities, paying tribute, paying taxes, such and such. All right. And Israel happened to be one of those locations, all right, that was also taken over by Rome. So although, all right, when you read in the New Testament, Israelites were able to keep their laws, all right, and you had the scribes and Pharisees and the chief priests and all of that, because you had what was called the Sanhedrin, which was sort of like the court, okay, the court for Israel, because Israel were allowed to basically keep our laws. We didn't have to conform to Roman laws 100%. Nonetheless, the Romans still had a presence in there. Okay, they still had a presence in there. So that's like in America today, they'll tell you have freedom of religion. You can practice whatever you want to practice, but nonetheless, if your religion or your belief goes against the federal law of the land of America, then you can be penalized, okay, by the government, because ultimately they have that ultimate authority. You see, so it was like that with the Romans back then. You can't say, because according to the scriptures, sodomites are supposed to be put to death, but that's against the law, all right, in this society. You see, and so if you were to go and do something like that, which would be very stupid of you to do, if you were to go and do something like that, guess what? The authorities could come and get you and penalize you for that. So it was the same thing back then. You can keep your laws and do what you got to do, but certain things you can't just take your own free will and go and do it, because the Romans still had that ultimate authority. Okay. So it says here, the chief captain commanded him to be brought. This is talking about Paul. The chief captain commanded Paul to be brought into the castle and bade that he should be examined by scourging, that he might know wherefore they cried so against him. Because you had a whole ruckus, Israelites trying to get a piece of Paul, like, yo, he's bringing Gentiles into the temple, such and such. All right, and which when the chief, so that's like if in modern day terms, you at you teaching or something, and there's a whole commotion, people coming up, is getting chaotic, and the cops see it, and they come in there and they break it up, like, what's going on? And they say, yo, grab him up, whoever the speaker is, bring him, put him in the car, we'll take him to the precinct, and we'll interrogate him and see why people were trying to fight him or beat him up or whatever the case may be. Okay, so that would be like a modern example of what was going on. Now, like it says here, that he should be examined. When you look into the word examined, all right, it doesn't mean he was just getting patted down. Okay, it says here to investigate, to examine judicially. Okay, now it says that he was supposed to be examined by what? Let me read it here. To be examined by scourging. Now let's look up the word scourging. It says here to whip, scourge, a calamity, misfortune. All right, the main one we want here is to whip or to scourge, because there's certain levels of interrogation. Sometimes they'll ask you questions, or sometimes they'll try to beat the questions out of you, beat the answers out of you, whatever the case may be. All right. So it says, so Paul should be examined by scourging, and that he might know wherefore they cried so against him. And as they bound him with thongs. Now, before thongs is not talking about what today what you think of a thong is. No, it's talking about like a leather rope or leather material, that they could whoop your ass with, or they could tie you up with it. Okay, like if you have leather flip-flops, the pieces that connect it. Okay, it says Paul said unto the centurion. So as they bound him with those thongs, Paul said unto the centurion that stood by, which when you look into the word centurion, we use centurion, to refer to the police or whatever the case may be. But the word centurion says an officer in the Roman army. Now I believe, yeah, there it is. It says the captain of 100 men, centurion. Okay, which it's for example, the word century, which means 100. You can see that word in here. Okay, so like you get the word centurion, it means one over 100. Okay, which is a rank. Okay, a ranking system in the Roman army. Okay, so now let's keep reading, and I'm going to get to the point. It says, Paul said unto the centurion that stood by, is it lawful for you? Now, he wasn't talking about Israelite laws, okay? He was talking about the Roman laws, and you'll see why. Is it lawful for you to scourge a man that is a Roman or uncondemned? Okay. Now, Paul pulled that card, okay? And it says here, when the centurion heard that, he went and told the chief captain, saying, take heed what thou doest, for this man is a Roman. Now, what does this mean? Does this mean that Paul was born in Rome? He was an Edomite. He was raised in the Roman ways, okay? And then he was just a purebred Edomite, red in the face, pale, all that? No. All right. What it meant when Paul said he was a Roman, yes, he was a Roman, but what? He had a Roman citizenship. Okay, so it doesn't mean that he was of a. It doesn't even make sense to say that he was of his nationality was Roman. That doesn't even. That's like saying, "What's your nationality?" You tell somebody, I'm Christian." That's not a nationality. Okay, so it says, "Take heed what thou doest, for this man is a Roman." Now, Um, why did they get so shook up when they found out Paul was a Roman citizen? It says, I'm gonna keep reading and I'll give you the answer. It says, then the chief captain came and said unto him, tell me, art thou a Roman? He said, yea, or yeah. And the chief captain answered, with a great sum obtained I this freedom. And Paul said, but I was free born. Okay. So he said, with a great sum obtained I this freedom to get that Roman citizenship, because it was a big thing. But it says, but I was freeborn, Salakia. So because, which I have the information here on the Roman citizenship, there were different, like you can be, there were different levels of Roman citizens. Some who were previously slaves, all right, that achieved it and were freed. Okay, but Paul was letting them know, no, he wasn't a slave citizen. Okay, he was a free man, basically. It says here, then straightway they departed from him, which should have examined him. So the people who were about to whoop his ass and interrogate him, they fell back. All right away. It says, and the chief captain also was afraid, and he knew, or after he knew that he was a Roman, and because he had bound him. Okay, because he's so sharp. No, that's like if somebody was to, if a cop was to try and harass you, all right, and you told him I'm Jewish, or I'm from the Rothschild family. Oh, man, they might just drop dead, you know. So now let's get this information here. I'm gonna read up and then jump down. It says Roman citizenship. Citizenship in ancient Rome was a privileged political and legal status, okay, afforded to free individuals with respect to laws, property, and governance. All right, it says a male Roman citizen enjoyed a wide range of privileges and protections defined in detail by the Roman state. A citizen could, under certain exceptional circumstances, be deprived of his citizenship. See, so what? That's why Paul pulled that card, because being that he was a Roman citizen, all right, and you didn't have to be a quote unquote Roman, all right, or born and lived in that land of Rome to be a citizen, all right, because as Rome conquered and took over other lands, they offered that citizenship, okay, as a means of avoiding rebellion, okay. So it says here privileges and protections, and that's why when we read here it says when they found out he was a Roman, they stood back, and that's why Paul said, "Is it lawful?" Because he knew that once he said that they were gonna back off. All right, is it lawful for you to scourge a man that is a Roman and uncondemned? All right, so he pulled that card there. All right, now let me jump down here. All right, it says citizenship as a tool of Romanization. Roman citizenship was also used as a tool of foreign policy and control. Colonies and political allies would be granted a minor form of Roman citizenship, there being several graduated levels of citizenship and legal rights. The Latin right was one of them. Okay, it says the Latin right were a set of legal rights that were originally granted to the Latins under Roman law. Latinitas was commonly used by Roman jurists to denote this status. Okay, all right, that's nice. It says so that's like I guess you could say like how uh, if you're a citizen, all right, it's different than if you're an immigrant or an illegal immigrant, as they like to say. You know, if you're a citizen, you have your social security number, your green card, all these things. It's easy to apply for a job and do whatever you got to do, as opposed to not having that citizenship and things being much more difficult for you. You might have to work off the books, that kind of thing. Watch out for ICE and all these different things like that. You see, so there's certain privileges you get for being a citizen, such and such. And back then, it was similar, but in its own way. So it says the promise of improved status within the Roman fear of influence and the rivalry with one's neighbors for status keep the focus of many of Rome's neighbors and allies centered on the status quo of Roman culture rather than trying to subvert or overthrow Rome's influence. So they did it purposely. They offered that citizenship because they were the rulers at the time. So if you're a citizen of Rome, then you get perks for that. It says the granting of citizenship to allies and the conquered was a vital step in the process of Romanization. This step was one of the most effective political tools, and at that point in history, original political ideas, perhaps one of the most important reasons for the success of Rome. Okay, so like it says, man, it was to Hey, yeah, let me read this part here. It says previously, Alexander the Great had tried to mingle his Greeks with the Persians, Egyptians, Syrians, etc., in order to assimilate the people of the conquered Persian Empire. But after his death, the policy was largely ignored by his successors. The idea was not to assimilate, but to turn a defeated and potentially rebellious enemy or their sons into Roman citizens. Instead of having to wait for the unavoidable revolt of a conquered people, like Sparta and the conquered Helots, Rome tried to make those under its rule feel that they had a stake in the system. And that's why having a Roman citizenship was a perk. And Paul pulled that card here, all right, on these Roman centurions, okay, which you had Jakes, all right, Israelites in the Roman army or the Roman legions, okay. So now let's see what so we know what citizenship Paul had, but let's see of what nation Paul was from. This is Romans chapter 11 verse 1. I say then, hath the Most High cast away his people? God forbid. For I also am an Israelite. Okay? Israel meaning a son of God, okay, or prince of the power, Yashar Allah, okay, Yah he Shar prince Allah power or God. Okay, and it meaning belonging to. So Paul belongs to the nation of Israel, of the seed of Abraham, and of the tribe of Benjamin, which was one of the 12 tribes of the nation of Israel. So Paul just gave you his nationality here in Romans the 11th chapter. Okay, he is from the nation of Israel, a descendant of Abraham, of the tribe of Benjamin. All right, but he had a Roman citizenship. So he was an Israelite carrying a Roman citizenship, just like we are Israelites living in the land of America with American citizenships. Okay, so we're Israelites, all right, but we're also American citizens. Okay, but that doesn't mean because you can't. What defines American? Okay, you have an Edomite that can say he's American. You have a so-called Chinese person that can say they're American, and you could be a black person saying you're American. So if somebody was to ask, well, how do I? If I say, oh, those Americans, what do you mean by those Americans? Do you mean the black Americans? Do you mean the Chinese Americans? Do you mean the white American? If you just say Americans, it's a melting pot. So it's a country with different nations intermingled. So you have to specify. But why is that? Because being American is a citizenship. All right. So now we got Paul's nationality. Now let's got one more precept. This is Acts 22 verse 3, because now it tells you where Paul was born. Okay. It says, I am verily, now this is Paul speaking. I am verily a man which am a Jew. That is his nationality. Born in Tarsus, a city in Cilicia, yet brought up in this city at the feet of Gamaliel, and taught according to the perfect manner of the law of the fathers, and was zealous toward the Most High, as ye all this day. So Paul said he was a Jew, or he is a Jew, born in Tarsus, which is in Cilicia. Now, when you look it up here, Cilicia is in you could say Asia Minor, okay, or Turkey or Anatolia, all right, which is all talking about this region right here, okay. As you can see, Roman provinces in Asia Minor, because Rome had taken over this place as well. And Cilicia is right down here. Tarsus, to be more specific, is right down here. Now, if you were to go all the way down here, you'd be making your way down to Jerusalem, all right, down past Galilee, so on and so forth. Okay, so this is where Paul was born. He wasn't born all the way in the land of Rome, in Italy. No, he was born here. So how did he obtain a Roman citizenship? Because, like we read here, Rome offered. They use it as a tool, all right, of foreign policy and control, but they offered that minor form of citizenship to those provinces that they had, okay, to avoid rebellion, all right, and to also maintain order and rulership, okay. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Okay, I just wanted to address that topic. All right, about first understanding nationality and citizenship. All right, and also going into it, man, Paul was an Israelite. Okay, he was not a Gentile. He was not a heathen. He was an Israelite. Okay, so Lord willing, this was edifying unto the elect. I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahashem Yahweh Shai, Bahashem Rachak Kodash. Until next time, Shalom.